Right now we have a massive housing shortage and affordability crisis. And before you get all pissed and say, oh, we have a bunch of houses, the economy is correcting, I do think the economy is going to correct. It's inevitable. We had such a major bull run the past couple of years. The market has to adjust at some point. I don't think that we can continue going up to new all-time highs in the real estate market. If that does happen, then the inequality is just going to get really bad, and then it's just not going to make sense anymore to live in the US. You're going to have to leave the country and go somewhere else. But I do want to talk in this video specifically about an invitation that I got from a developer called Onyx Homes, and what they do is they create prefabricated homes, and it's actually pretty dope. So they invited me out. I went to their factory in Pompano where they assemble the walls and do all the partitions and everything, and it honestly looked like I was in a Star Wars assembly line of where they build the drones. I don't want to nerd out here, but it was very futuristic how they were setting up these homes. They had all these machines just building everything out. They had a few people pouring the concrete and moving it around and making sure that the concrete was evenly spread out. But overall, I was actually pretty impressed with how quickly they were able to build these sections of walls and all that. And honestly, I do think that they have an advantage in this marketplace because from what they told me, it takes 30 days for them to build a home. So from the moment they get all the approvals and permitting and everything done, they go out to the site, and then within 30 days they build it up because they do everything basically like Lego pieces. So I actually went to their factory that they have in Florida City where they assemble the bathrooms. So they make the bathrooms there, and then in Pompano, they do all the walls and all that different stuff. And they bring everything together to the site. So they'll go to that specific site, and then they just drop it in there like Lego pieces and assemble it. And they just move in there. Boom, 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 boom. Next one, next one, next one. And I think it's very unique because the traditional home building process, you gotta lay the foundation, you gotta pour cement, then brick by brick, you put the bricks there. I mean, I don't know where you live. You may live up north. I believe they build a lot with wooden structures. But here in South Florida, Florida in general, because of hurricanes, everything has to be concrete and very strong and durable. But I really like the process of how they were doing it. And when they were making the bathrooms, they pour all the cement into that mold, they turn it around, and then when it pops out, I think the strength is around 3,000 PSI, don't quote me on that. And then over the curing process, which they just leave it there over time, I think within a month or so, it goes up to 6,000 PSI. So it's really strong, durable stuff that they have there. So I think that this could be an interesting solution to the housing shortage that we're having, but I think there's a big problem, and we got to address it, which is the land issue. You can have a better process in building homes and building these different products, but if you don't have available land, then the cost is still going to be there. And that's probably the largest expense that developers are going to be facing, aside from the actual construction cost, the acquisition of land. Because if you buy a big piece of land, and let's say you spend $20 million to develop that land, now you got to run the numbers, make sure that everything makes sense, and then those costs trickle into the end product, and that's what you're paying for at the end of the day when you're buying these units or these single family homes or townhomes, whatever you're looking at. The D.R. Horton does the same, Lennar Homes. So these are things that are very important that we got to take into consideration. Here in Miami-Dade County specifically, we don't have enough land. You have out east, you have the water, and most of that whole entire area has already been developed. Out west, you have the urban development line. A lot of that's already been developed. And then you go down south, you have the agriculture area, and then there are developments going on, but not as fast because of what's happening with interest rates. Developers are being very smart. They don't want to oversupply the market, even though we do need a lot of product to enter that market. The issue is that we're going to have to wait and see. Now, I do want to say this. The affordability crisis isn't just isolated here in Miami-Dade County or in the United States. It is across the globe. I challenge you to go on the internet and look up housing affordability crisis or shortages, and you're going to see UK, you're going to see Australia, you're going to see it happening all over the globe. This inflation that we're feeling right now is not isolated to just Miami. It's happening everywhere. So we got to take that into consideration. I do think the future of real estate, if we can adapt new innovative technologies, for example, these prefabricated homes, I think this could be a solution. When I did ask the developer, they don't do direct to consumer. So if I own a piece of land and I want to develop on that and use one of those homes on that property, at this current moment, they're not doing that. I don't know why. I really didn't dig into the weeds, but they have a very interesting product, which is these duplexes that they're going to start coming out with, which I think that type of product is going to sell like crazy here in South Florida because the overall cost of ownership is so high. If I'm buying a single family home for $750,000, $850,000, and I can get that same price and get a duplex and rent that other side for $3K, it's a no-brainer. So that's going to be a very interesting business model, which I'm curious to see how they perform on that. I think they are actually going to sell that better than the single family homes, but that's not a new concept. D.R. Horton, Lennar is doing it, and those homes are next gen, where a portion of that home is for the in-law quarters. So that's completely separate. It's next to the home, but it's basically has like its own space there, which is not a new design. But I think in this high inflation and affordability issues that we're facing here in Miami-Dade County, I think that type of product is going to outperform tremendously, just because if I'm a young person looking to start a family, but I don't want to have that burden of that cost, or let's say I want to have my family or my parents or my wife's parents moving into the other unit and paying it down, and together we're helping each other manage the cost of living, I see that as a huge opportunity. I mean, it's already happening now. There's a lot of people within their 30s and 40s that are actually moving back in with their parents just because the overall cost doesn't make sense. And it's nuts to think about it. If you're making $75,000 a year, which 5 years ago, that was a pretty decent income, that's like peanuts. That might as well be minimum wage. Now, for those of you that are watching this video, don't get mad at me, because this is the reality. If you're making $75,000 a year as a single person or a household income, you are living literally by a thread. With how expensive Miami-Dade County has gotten, the only solution here is to increase your income. For those of you that are making $75,000 a year, don't get depressed. You just got to be positive, and you got to be innovative, and you got to adapt. And there's a lot of people who are adapting and leaving South Florida, which I would say this: Miami is in a period of growth, and over the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see a lot of changes in this community and a lot of opportunities if you're open to it and if you're ready to adapt into the new environment. Don't go into this assumption that the market is going to crash. There are going to be ebbs and flows. I mean, that's real estate. Real estate's going to have its ups, it's going to have its downs. But the important thing is, how are you going to take advantage of those ups, and how are you going to take advantage of those downs? In both markets, there's opportunities to make money and to evolve. The only question is, how are you going to view it when that time comes, and what are you going to do to prepare yourself for that to happen? If right now you're in a great position financially, well, start doing something else on the side. Start insulating yourself so you can be prepared, so when a downside comes, you can take the advantage of it. And for those of you that may not be doing so well, what can you do now to add into your plate so you can adapt? Now, before you even roast me in the comments and say, oh, I don't want to do another part-time job or gig, well, you're going to have to, unless your main income is really well, then you know what, you're in a really good position. And hey, I got to tip my hat off to you. But before I go down a rabbit hole in this video, long story short, I think this type of product is important. I think if we implement this across the United States, I think this could be a big solution. I'm very curious to see how these major developers like Onyx Homes, D.R. Horton, will they change their manufacturing process? There are new ways of developing homes. For example, this Onyx Homes, they're doing it. It's all poured concrete, it's a quicker timeline, better processes. Their homes are a bit cheaper than the competition. So it's interesting. I've seen some other technology out there of how they build homes, but we got to wait and see. I think that area is ready to be disrupted with technology, especially with AI and automation. I think there's a lot of opportunities there if the right people get together in the room and explore it. And maybe there has to be more government intervention in the sense of stimulation, more investment into that, more subsidies to these tech firms that specialize in construction technology. I think that would be very important to advance the industry. But again, I don't want to dive into this too much. If you enjoy this type of content, you found some value, let me know in the comments down below. And where do you think the future of real estate is going, whether you're here in Miami or you're in other parts of the country or the globe? So if you're watching this, I would love to hear your opinion. Now, if you made it to the end, what are you waiting for? Give me a follow. Have a good one.